I am in my feelings, and I am making it everybody's problem. Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. And yes, this one has me feeling a kind of way. So today, I am reviewing Grandmaster Arcanist by Shami Stovall. This is the 8th and final book in the Frith Chronicles, and my dumbass didn't know that it was the 8th and final book. Well, like I knew it was the 8th. I didn't know it was the end though, because unlike the beginning of the series where I went at length talking about the synopsis, I didn't bother reading this one. Shami Stovall is the only indie author that I work with who has carte blanche, just send me a book whenever permissions. No other author I work with has that, but she was the OG, she's the one that started the reviews on my channel, so it seems appropriate. So she just sent me this one out of nowhere, and I just made room on my TBR out of nowhere. And I didn't really bother to look at the back very often. Maybe I would have seen the fact that it literally says the end of an era. Maybe if I'd been looking on Amazon, I would have seen it say something about the final confrontation. I didn't. I had no idea. So I was a little bit taken aback. And it's really funny because I actually went back and watched my first review of the first book in this series, where I went on at length about the synopsis that I took a lot of concern with. And it's really funny that I just don't care nearly 3.5 years later. But I am sitting here in the same place I sat all those years ago reviewing that book, in the same dress I wore all those years ago. And I am feeling nostalgic. I might wax nostalgic at the end of this video, but first let's get an actual review done. Now obviously I'm going to be spoiling things. This is the 8th in a series. If you would like to check out my thoughts on the previous books, I will have all of those previous reviews linked down below. So this one is when we are leading up to the final confrontation with the Autarch, with all of the God Arcanists gearing up for battle. Only not all the God Arcanists are even around at the beginning of this book, and that's part of the reason that I didn't realize, even as I was reading it, that it was the last book, because there was just so much left to do that I swore there was at least going to be one other book beyond this one. At the beginning, there's still several God creatures to find in the first place and to, train up to do the thing to beat the bad guy, that I could have sworn we were going to have one book that was just doing that, and then the final book was going to be gearing up for the final confrontation. So I started noticing that it felt weird because it was like so much was happening so quickly, and a lot of things was happening off screen, as opposed to, for example, the World Serpent layer, where Volk became a God Arcanist, that took up giant chunks of the end and was the big final thing. This one has several God creatures being found and bonded with, like one right after the other, and in most cases off screen. Volk doesn't even witness it happen. He's off doing something else. Now those things that he's doing outside of that are still important, are still big plot beats, but like I wanted to see that. I wanted more about the God creatures themselves, and in some cases he's not even the one that leads the person to do it, and it kind of, there was kind of this vibe of, okay, we gotta wrap this up, we gotta get it going, and it kind of took away some of the gravitas from a lot of what was going on, because especially those later God creatures, we didn't get a lot of time with them. We didn't get a lot of like in-depth searching for the layer, in-depth learning about them. So as a result, it didn't feel like they mattered as much as Terracona and Fenrir to a certain extent, or Bjorn, sorry, not Fenrir, the wolf. And I kind of wish we would have had more with that. I kind of wish we would have gotten more time to actually like vibe with the God creatures, because for several books now, that's been the thing that everyone's been chasing after, but we kind of rushed through it. Now that being said, there were still some big plot points that I really liked, and obviously I can't talk about any of them in depth, but that was kind of, it was just one of those things where it was a lot. And it was especially a problem because there's a giant cast into these books, and a lot of people came back from previous books, and there was a point where like, I swear there was like 3 or 4 times where Volk goes in to like check in with Riker, just so you know that like, yeah, Riker's still here, Riker's still a character that's around. I don't think, was Jose in this story like at all? like that kind of thing, where there's so many characters that are technically still around, and they'll get like, oh yeah, BTW, they're still here, but just this giant cast of characters that you can't possibly all keep up with, because this book would be 300 pages longer just trying to keep up with all of them. But I mean, I love all the characters, and I do have Arcanist Fables, which is the like companion book to this series, that has all of the like side stories that Volk wasn't there for up through book 5, I think. I don't know that I'm going to review this one. Comment down below if you really want to see a review of it. I'm kind of just going to probably read it for me, only because it really is just like side stories and fables and stuff. It's not a mainline installment. But there was just a lot. I will say that Shami did a great job of bringing other things to fruition that showed how much thought she had put into all of this. For example, you finally figure out what Theosin Venrover was doing using Adelgis for the Abyssal Leech, and what the Abyssal Leech experiment was, and that was a really big reveal that I liked. Addie's quest comes back into play again. I really liked that. There was a lot of pairing off in this one, mostly like cementing relationships that you kind of already knew were a thing, like Vethica and Hexa, Fane and Adelgis. They kind of hinted at something with Linus and Zelfrey in the past, like that kind of stuff. But that also brings up Volk and Eviana. I, to the end, could not decide my feelings on the main relationship of the book, which is weird for me. I am usually very decisive when I like it or I don't like it. And in this case, I was just meh about the two of them together, mostly because Volk's not the greatest boyfriend. He would just up and leave her to do a quest thing without so much as saying goodbye, like regularly. Like, he would, big things would happen in their relationship, and he would just forget to announce it to anyone else. Like, just wouldn't talk about it to anyone else. And the book kind of frames it as, oh, he's just forgetful. And yeah, he has a lot going on, but also, like, objectively, dude needs to work on the relationship. And I got, the final vibe I ended up with was, it's nice that he has someone. And that's about it. And it wasn't even that he didn't end up with Ilya, which we'd known for a while he wouldn't, right? She and Zaxxas have been together for books. Because I actually liked Ilya and Zaxxas together. Her more subdued, hiding herself vibe, and him being like this big braggadocious character. They actually like evened each other out really nicely. I really liked it. But Eviana and Volk, I just could not care. I just could not get behind it. Like, I was never, it didn't take away from the story. I wasn't like disgusted by the romance, but I wasn't invested either. It was just a thing that was going on. But of course, the ending, we must discuss the ending, because Shami Stovall endings are always gigantic. This is the 11th book that I have read from her. The first of her series that I finished, but I've read among 3 different series of hers now. And Girlfriend loves her gigantic battle at the end of a book, constantly. And this one was properly gigantic. It was a big battle, a lot of really tense moments, a lot of cool magic, a lot of things coming to fruition. As I mentioned before, because we got so little time with some of the newer God Arcanists, and in fact a lot of them were characters that we hadn't really gotten to know very well, there was a certain element of lack of emotional connection to them, purely because they'd been either random side characters or characters that had been gone for an entire books, and there were only God Arcanists for like 150 pages before the big battle. And so there was an element of emotional gravitas that was slightly missing, because a lot of the big fighters in the world in this battle were people that you didn't necessarily care about as much as the characters that had been there, the original group of apprentices. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about that. But the real kicker, and I was very impressed by this, was that the best part of the ending was not the big battle. And obviously, I don't want to get too spoilery, But the author told me, because I had jokingly and lovingly called her out to say, you know, fuck you for all the emotional distress you put on me, she decided to reveal to me that chapter 51 is the hardest chapter she's ever written. And so I was like, why would you do that to me? I already put off the endings of these books for so long. I would have put this one off longer if I literally did not have a big, like, fundraising readathon starting literally tomorrow as I film this. That's the only reason that I actually, like, stuck to the schedule. I would have put it off like I have with so many of her other books. But no, I gotta finish it. But 51, chapter 51. Like, no spoilers, but oh my word. Chapter 51 does hit you in the feels, and it was impressive because it hit you in the feels in a quiet way, in an almost peaceful way. It wasn't a dramatic big battle. It was more bittersweet, more resigned, and I was like, like, there comes a moment when Volk literally thinks to himself that he is finally the hero he dreamed of being all those years ago when he stood at the first step of the pillar trying to complete the Phoenix's trial of worth. And there was literally an ache in my chest as I read that line. And it's just nice to know that for all of the author's love of big explosive battles, that she can still do the quiet stuff, the little stuff, the bittersweet stuff. Now, I will still say the ending wasn't quite what I had hoped for in the realm of an entire circle being completed, so to speak. It does end on his birthday, which is cute because that's how it began, also on his birthday. And there was an element of completion to a certain extent for other characters, but I don't know, there was a part of me that, like, wanted the, you know, Zelfrey and all the apprentices together for that moment, that one last time. You know, like, I wanted that, the end of an era properly, but, like, in that quiet way. But that was, again, me in my feels. I love a good ending. And it's so hard because now I am in my feels about an ending. So this is the part where I get really nostalgic. If all you wanted was the review, you can click off now. I first reviewed Nightmare Arcanist in June of 2019. And it is so funny to go back and think about then because I considered Nightmare Arcanist to be the blip of the Shami Stovall library. I loved Starmark Rising, which was her adult space opera series, and I was like, yes, that's gonna be it. And so when she offered me Nightmare Arcanist, I was like, why not? It's a cute little YA, we'll do it. And then she just keep putting out those books, and I get it. YA fantasy sells better than adult sci-fi. Get your bag. I'm just still waiting on that third book. But I'd actually come out here because regardless of the heater in the background, and thank you if you have survived that audio-wise, I just wanted to be sentimental. I only had one bookcase in the background of my videos, and I was so self-conscious about it because, you know, the real booktubers had like whole filled bookcases behind them and everything they did. And now I do have the full bookcases behind me, and over 2 shelves of one of those bookcases is literally just review books. And Shami Stovall started that trend for me, started that journey for me. So obviously this author is always going to mean a lot to me, but this series in particular was the one where I realized how much influence I could have in the sphere of indie books, even outside of having very few subscribers. I've just hit 1K after 4 years of doing this. And I noticed in my YouTube studio, I was going through it one day back when I was like, I must grow my channel before I just said that it was a hobby. The most watched list on your YouTube studio is basically what of your videos has gotten the most views in the last 28 days, regardless of when they've been published. And I'd been reviewing this series for a while, when I realized that several reviews from it were suddenly jumping up in my most viewed. Like, we're getting dozens of views at once. We're suddenly jumping to the top of the list of all-time views. And I actually went and I messaged the author and I was like, Shami, are you taking off? She goes, yeah, the Frith Chronicles is like viable. Like, I'm going to be a full-time author now. And it was wild because hundreds of views were on those reviews. And I don't know if you know this, book reviews on BookTube don't actually do that well. You'd think otherwise, but no, they actually can do pretty poorly. And to have hundreds of reviews on an indie book series was especially pertinent because, you know, third, fourth, fifth books in a series don't get that many reviews, or like that many views. So to get that many for several books in, like, it was wild to me. And I realized that even having only the couple hundred, maybe 500 subscribers that I did, I still could have influence. I still could be convincing people to buy these books and to get into indie, and could be an extra voice when they were looking into books. And that was so special to me. And it is really sad that it's over now. And I know I still have that. I know I still have that influence. And obviously, Miss Stovall, if you would like to send the first book in the Asher Academy series to me, I'm all for that. Yes, I know I have said in the past that I don't like magic school books, but I will make an exception here because I just know there's going to be a ton of cameos. There's such a large cast, you could have like 10 cameos per book and never repeat a character twice. And I would love to read that, so please feel free to send me those. I will also eventually be reading this one, probably again just for myself, unless a lot of people are like, no, please review it. It does feel like the end of an era for me in a certain way, even as my channel did finally beat 1,000 subscribers. There is a chance I could theoretically, if my view count continues to go up, that I could monetize this one day. And it does feel fitting talking about this on the review of the series that I watched hit viability in real time. And obviously I'm going to keep reviewing Shami Stovall books. Obviously I'm still waiting for that third Star Mark Rising. I will probably be more in my feels for that book than this one, because that one was legit the OG. But for now, it does, again, that line Vogue talked about where he dreamed of being a hero standing at the pillar and he became that hero. Like, I know the hero's journey is so cliche, I get it, but I loved it. And I loved these last 4 years. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years and what ways Shami Stovall will emotionally distress me next. Because yes, that chapter 51 got me. And also, yeah, Addie's Phoenix still has that one feather. You don't think I don't know you're gonna bring up that one feather somewhere in the future in one of those books? I see you, Miss Stovall. I know that's coming up. Regardless, thank you so much if you've been around watching this entire rambling thing. Thank you so much if you've been watching the other Frith Chronicles reviews. It's meant the world to me. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.